Okay, so I will make a motion that we accept the August 2023 and the October 2023 minutes as presented.
Okay, would anyone like to second that?
I'll second.
Gina seconds that. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you. We're going to go straight into the committee status reports. Katrina, we're going to start with you, if you will, because I don't think Colleen is on and John won't be on today. So, Katrina, would you like to carry it forward and tell us what's going on at DEI?
Yeah, sure. So we did not meet this past month. We met, I guess, Corey, about 2 months back, and we met with the operator, as we had talked about at this meeting, and really wanted to see exactly what type of data they're currently tracking as it relates to demographics and all that information. And so they are compiling some information now, but only on set small populations of particular participants that are coming in. And I can't remember exactly the names of the pots of people, but they may be tracking 60 out over in one particular group and 30 in another group, but they're not getting everybody that's coming in. So they're working on adding something to that intake so we can get a better picture of who is actually coming in for what services. So we'll touch base with them after the beginning of the year to try to get a metrics to see, sort of our baseline, where we are now with what we have, and then look at that intake to see if that is really capturing the information that we want to capture, so that we know what data that will be coming back to us for us to review. We also talked about with the MBO committee. We did meet with them as well, and we talked about how the different demographics are looking, and I think we're doing a relatively good job with the different members that we are recruiting, and so we're going to continue to do that and continue to focus on our rural, trying to get more people from the rural area. Also trying to see if how we can incorporate younger people too. And if that's through committees or something else, we need to get the young professionals engaged in some type of way. So working with MBO on, how to do that and stay within the parameters of the requirements for the actual board itself. So that's where we are with that. We'll continue to work on it.
Katrina, I'm going to throw this out there. It seems I'm doing this from memory, but aren't most of their decisions that they're making at intake based on visual collection of information?
They were, yes. So for the people that were coming in, they were just saying they appear to be this or appear to be that. And we said it's got to be, we really have to ask people. And, it's in most social services, like for instance with us at Community Action, we do ask that type of information. It's it's something that's very common amongst providers, so I don't think it is an intrusion to ask them that, but we do need to ask instead of making assumptions. So that's something that we're definitely going to ask them to incorporate into that intake.
Okay, that's a really good call out. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else have questions?
One last thing, we did get really good feedback about the training that we were doing at the board meetings. So we were going to summarize all of that training and then put that survey back out, because as you remember, we did a survey, I guess, at the beginning of last year or the end of 22-23, where we did the survey, and we got a lot of different feedback on those answers. And so one of the reasons we wanted to do the training was so that we all could have a common understanding of the terminology of what do those terms mean. And so we want to put that survey back out to see if we get different results based upon the information that we presented through that survey. So that'll be coming out in 2024.
Awesome. Okay, very good. All right. Ms. Steph,
Oh, it's me already.
yeah,
Um,
business
So in
services.
terms of business services, at the last large workforce investment board meeting, you were able to talk about and get the pass for site certification. That was kind of like a photo finish, right, for the end of that meeting, but we got it done. Our next meeting is on the 20th, so it's next week. So outside of that, I really can't think of anything else that I have to report.
No, I mean, that was the site for certifications, as you mentioned, were really the only action item that's outside of approval minutes for that last meeting. So it really is just a look ahead.
You were concerned about it.
That's great. That's great. We can use more time to look back. But I am able to report on behalf of the MBO if you want.
Please do so.
And at the time that I did this, the agenda, I did.
Absolutely.
Are we doing the business services meeting Zoom only or in person?
Let's see here. Zoom.
Zoom, okay, thanks. Sorry, go on.
It's fine. So when I did this agenda, I had not known that John was unable to attend today, so sorry about that. We had an MBO meeting yesterday afternoon, and we spent a good bit of time talking about board members whose terms were nearing the end. Their third term, that is. So we have 8 not that all of our board members aren't strong, but we have 8 extremely strong board members whose third terms are coming to an end June 30th.
And who are those 8?
Who are those 8?
That's right.
I don't.
You came to present, you gotta
I
know
know,
that.
I should have had that ready to go. Let me pull that up really quickly. But we spent a lot of time kind of talking through that, and frankly, we even talked about the fact that, you know, it says in our bylaws that, you know, of course, terms are 2 years. You can re-up twice, which means that any board member can serve as many as 6 years unless they change organizations, which is the case for a couple of our board members who've gone beyond 6 years. So we discussed the idea of what if we were to adjust the bylaws as one possible option. We didn't come to any conclusion there. We have some time, thankfully, to try to figure this out. In any case, we're going to still need to really do a good job of trying to identify new board members to come on our board. But just letting this committee know that the idea of potentially revising the bylaws to allow for more than 6 years essentially was discussed.
We kind of got at this, I'm just gonna open the conversation. We kind of got at this a couple of years ago when I was on NBO. And it was at the point that Michelle was coming in as chair because she had timed out. She was took a time out coinciding with her becoming chair. And we talked about how to get around that then, and we made some adjustments to the bylaws. And I know that a big piece of our conversation at that point was that while it kind of like made sense for us to do it, we also needed to be cognizant of the reason that those were put in there so that you didn't have people who became the power seat of the board. And I'm not saying I'm against it because I don't know that I am. I'm just saying that as we look at it, I would ask that those discussions be held so that everybody is thinking about the whole picture. And we're not making a long-term solution to support a short-term pain point.
I think, well,
So that would just be my feedback to the committee because at the time, that committee, I was on there, Dave, Lesher was on there. So there were a group of us that were I was fairly new at the board at that time, but we had a couple of really senior people on there and that were going to be rotating out. And I think one of the things that, the way we're set up is it kind of forces us to bring in and continue developing new board people so that you bring fresh ideas in. And again, you don't end up with a power block inside that can control direction because of just their experience and tenure. So I just ask that be consideration as those decisions are being made. And I trust the group. That is a great group. Dave, you sit on that. On all the others. I just assumed. So, but Katrina, you sit on that one, is that correct?
On NBO, no, we just do a joint meeting with them.
Do a joint.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
All right. I always get that confused. Okay. So, all right. Well, I'm off my soapbox.
I think that's,
I agree with you though.
Yeah, it's a tough decision because we're at a pain point. And when you're at a pain point, you're looking to solve the pain. And that doesn't always give you the best venue for making great decisions.
Yeah, and I think it's human nature to stick with what you already know. I mean, employers do that all the time, where you're like, you stay with your internal candidate, or you stay with the candidate that you know, or the candidate that's well connected to the communities that you already know. And so it pushes, having those time limitations pushes the entity to do the recruiting and to find the new talent. But there has to be a balance.
It opens up opportunities for us to continue to bring more diversity to the board as well, by having openings that we need to fill. And so I think there's multiple reasons to just really have a real long, hard discussion that's well-rounded in there. Okay.
yeah, good.
Now I'm really off the soapbox.
No, that's really,
I just joined you, that's all.
no, that's,
Hi, Colleen.
Hi, fabulous people. I am so sorry. I went to get in my car this morning and I got your engine is hot. We've turned off your AC and everything else. And yeah, so I'm stuck at home. I miss y'all.
Well, glad to see you.
It's nice to see you guys as well.
But we're so happy to see you. We're going to let you report out.
Oh, okay. I will happily do my best. From a standpoint of this committee, we actually had a meeting yesterday. One of the reasons why we let me take a step back. So we didn't have quorum for the meeting 2 months ago. We then canceled our last meeting. And what we really wanted to do is really look at this committee and how it can be more impactful in building a collaboration with the Brighton Center, but also making sure that the work made sense and was in line with what we were looking for from the WIB. So what we decided to do was, let's bring people together, let's reinvigorate them, and let's really just have the conversation as to what is the expectations of our group? How can we partner better with Brighton Center? So we really did a joint session with Brighton Center. And once again, we didn't have quorum. So there was more people that was staff members there than individuals who are on this committee. So I say that to say that I'm sort of at a loss as to what we should be doing from a committee standpoint. I don't know if it's time maybe for someone who is not me as the chair, or maybe me as the chair, whatever you all think is best, to start reaching out to people individually to see where their commitment is to this particular group, so that we can really get some action items, get some rigor, and be able to be more successful as it relates to what the Brighton Center needs and what the WIB needs for this committee to be strong and impactful. Now, what I will say from those who were there yesterday, we were able to pick up Brian. I don't know if there's been any conversation about Brian today. He's with the AFL-CIO. I think he's going to be super, super strong, and really glad that he, I see some smiles and some laughter. Anybody else had time with Brian?
No, we were just looking at Brian Bozeman saying.
Yeah, we
"It's
had
not-
a Brian
not
too.
you, Brian."
Oh, well, you know, I mean, with those Brian, we know how amazing you are. But you know, he's excited, he's invigorated, and I think that's what you want from new committee members, to be able to spread excitement as to what we can get done. Now, yesterday, while we did not have quorum, I think it was still very impactful. We had a lot of just dialogue with Brighton Center about what is it that they're seeing successes with, what is it that they're seeing challenges with, where's their greatest need. And what we learned yesterday is that the greatest need for them is actually in the 18 to 24 youth that is not in college, has not indicated that they're willing or wanting to go to college, and really trying to reach them. To me, yesterday, that's a tough ask from this committee. And unfortunately, Matt Turner had to get off prior to being able to see whether or not there's something with Boone County Schools or some way to do a connection there, to reach that impacted community. So from a reporting standpoint, you know, I think that this committee is really in a hard place, to be completely honest, because, you know, Melinda and Tony are doing an amazing job working with Brighton Center as to their compliance with state reporting. But, you know, there's not an RFP that's needed. Where they need significant help is not really the skill set of the team that's been present in the past few meetings. And I don't know how we impact today those individuals who are 18 to 24. You know, if it was more along the lines of, you know, really working with each individual who sits on the WIB to make sure that their companies are advocate and try to create internships or things along the lines of that, I think that's an easy ask. I think that the ask or the need that they currently have is a hard ask. And I don't know how to get excitement behind the committee members that are showing up for their ask, because it's 2 or 3 or 4 people each time.
Right.
So it's a tough report out for me today, because, you know, I want to say everything is amazing and we're doing wonderful work and we're having huge success. That would be I would just be dishonest with that. And I don't think that would be a fair report to the board today.
Colleen, you know, one thing that your group may be able to do is help them to create some marketing materials around the benefits of working with that group. Like we just started it for NKCAC. We're meeting with them, talking through how to collaborate more with our youth build program, particularly, you know, that is that same population that you're talking about.
Mhm.
But one thing that I noticed is that there's not any really good materials to promote those services. So maybe and I don't know if anybody has an area of expertise, but if you have people in your group that could help them to create that and to get that out to partners and potential employers, that might be a start in something that you could do so the group doesn't feel like they're, you know, not making any headway.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think that that's a great suggestion. I know that yesterday in the meeting, we talked about, you know, whether or not there was a stronger partnership that could be done with Gateway Community College for individuals who start college and drop out or fail out, that, you know, may be able to be impacted by the offerings. You know, there was some conversation about, you know, what can we do with the public schools? But again, you know, I agree marketing would probably be helpful in that area, but then you also have to worry about FERPA and getting access to names of anybody who's been in college that's no longer there. FERPA as it relates to the school districts. So it's just a tough ask based upon some of the regulatory restrictions that go with who they're trying to support.
So I just add a couple of things to you. One,
Sure.
sitting right here in the room, I've got Todd across the table from me. And Todd came out and met with me not too long ago. And at our company, we do a broad spectrum of this kind of stuff.
Okay.
I've got kids from the Ignite Academy that I've got several kids working for me from the Ignite Academy that are in their senior years, and they're working with our engineering team. And these are kids that are looking in the engineering disciplines. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the Boone Area Technology Center. It's on the Connor campus, and they not only have programs to get these kids ready, these kids that are in their senior year ready to go into healthcare roles, but also manufacturing roles, welding, sheet metal maintenance, electrical for the building trades. And I've got 3 kids from that program that are, one of them 17, 2 of them are 18, but they can all work for us because the legislature has put pieces in that will allow them to work at 17 of those jobs because it's an accredited program. And then I've got kids from NKU and University of Cincinnati who are in engineering and different disciplines of engineering that work as co-ops. So there's a lot of ways, and we're a small company. I mean, we're just about to hit 100 people, and we feel like we're busting at the seams, but we're able to do that. And Todd's asked me was, how do we get other companies to do it? I think sometimes it's just letting people know what they actually can do.
And Dean, I think that that's great, but I think that that also poses a little bit of problem for this program that the Brighton Center is talking about. Because if an individual in this age group identifies that they want to go to a college program or they want to go into an apprentices program, they're not eligible for this Brighton Center money that they're talking about. So there's this box of restriction that doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Because what he said yesterday, and please correct me if I'm wrong, Todd was there and Corey was there, was that if the individual says, I'm thinking about going to UC next year, then they're no longer eligible because they're considered someone who's going into a college program. And whether or not they actually attend is where there's this rub, for lack of a better phrasing, because they've now been pigeonholed into this box that they're not eligible for these funds. So they're really looking for those individuals who are in the basement of their parents. You know, the ones that are so hard to find that, you know, I agree. Companies, we can talk all day long about how to get internships in and, you know, how to push them towards AFL-CIO for a trade program if college is not for them. But if that is where we move the focus of this group, then it's taking away from the focus and the partnership with the Brighton Center. And again, I'm not saying that that is right, wrong, or indifferent, but I do think that we're going to have to figure out which direction do we want to go. Because are we truly then advocating for the Brighton Center as we've sort of been connected in the past, or are we going to take this committee and focus it in a different direction, which is really just getting them to companies who potentially have internships or programs to help them be successful? I don't know what the answer is. And that's why I wanted to bring that back to say, what does everybody think? Because I can't get quorum to get a decision from the individuals who actually sit around the table. So
I would tell you that this quorum thing for you, I get it, because we had our own challenges when I chaired that very same committee. And to be fair to you, the committee really stayed focused on the contracts. Pulled people off on the side to do it, but that was a lot of the reporting over the last couple of years. So they kind of get into that mode of that's what they were, that was the business of the committee more than anything else. So you're going with a lot of the right directions, I think. And you're right, there are a lot of things that box you in, and Corey and I have talked about those in respect to program dollars that we don't have, that sometimes we may have to look at it and say, what's the right thing to do for the people? And what we may have to turn people to other programs just for the right thing to do. The schools are, if I'm not mistaken, the schools are driven to have those kids identified and try to have them career ready before they graduate. That's their real push there. The gap happens if they escape after they graduate, then it's almost impossible to ever find them again. They go out into the wild and you don't see them in the basement. You can't find the basement that they're in, right?
Right.
I also, speaking out of turn, I think Matt Turner's retiring
Yes.
at the end of the year. Is that right?
I guess so.
Yeah, I've been told that. Yeah. Yeah. So, and that's a shame because Matt has actually been a good advocate for these programs and realizing that there are, you know, 3 major paths for all of the kids in the schools. And, you know, I think that he's done a lot of good work with that. So hopefully we can continue that going in the school system, because all of it's about taking people and lifting them up. And that's no different than what you're doing here. Maybe we should get to the side and take this off of this table right now, but maybe there's a way that you and Corey and I get together and start
Can I
doing some
comment
strategies.
first?
Yes, ma'am.
Because I do have something to say. Okay, I just want to point out, and I'm certainly not pointing fingers, but I do want to point out that we have nearly 6,000 youth in the area that are not connected to education or a job. So they're out there. Katrina serves them. Brighton Center themselves serves them. So we know they're there. Yeah, there's a little gray area with the education, but it can be done. We've done it in the past. And so I think it's a matter, and we Melinda, when she ran her program, she was in Owen County, you know, that they welcomed her in, and every youth in Owen County at that time had to do a career plan. And they brought our staff in to make sure that happened. So, you know, we have, and that was just, we didn't enroll them. That was, you know, a public service, but you know what? It let the staff connect to the youth. And then when they walked out those doors at graduation and said, oh, wow, I have no idea what I'm doing. Guess who they contacted? So it is the connections. They are critical.
And I agree with that 100%, right? But
Oh,
I
and
think that the other piece of that is we're talking about what this committee can do, right? So,
Right.
you know, the staff being there and the resources being there, and those are Brighton Center's job, and from my perspective, right? From a committee perspective, I want to support you however I can, but I don't think that I can ask the people who sit here to go out and have those conversations.
No,
And so, you know, so I agree that they're out there, but for us as a committee, right? What is it that myself and the people who sit around the table and come together once a quarter, how do we support? Because I can't tell Brighton Center to do anything. If they're telling me that they've used their resources and they're unsuccessful and they now need our help as the committee, I don't know how to help with that. To be honest, because I can't go sit there. I can't leave my job and go to Boone County and say, what do I do there? I can't go and sit at a place where I think that kids may hang out during the day and say, hey, let me tell you about Brighton Center. So, you know, I want to make sure that there's something that we can do that's impactful, but I can't do the work. And so when you tell me your ask is reaching these people, I don't know how to support that as a person who's a business person in the community. I agree that they're out there. I agree there should be resources. I agree with all of that. I just feel like I'm being unsuccessful because I don't know how to help at this point.
What a great discussion to bring up, Colleen, because I think that this is likely a challenge of a lot of the business people that are participants on all of these committees, right? Where they want to help. They don't know what their role is in helping. They can't do, and nor do we want them to, because they're not necessarily qualified to do direct service, right?
Right.
Outreach in the community or direct service of working with youth. But it's like understanding the roles of the business professional who is a volunteer, volunteering their time to spend time. How are we getting the best use of the expertise that they bring to the table without loading them with the expectations of running the social service itself?
Because
Yeah.
and I think the thing about it is that I can't even get them to come to a meeting, right? So I don't know that I can say, how do I put some extra work on your plate? Because I don't even know what they're excited about. And until I can get them excited about, one, the WIB, two, that this particular committee that they sit on, and then get them to say, yes, we want to be supportive here, or we want to spend our time here, or it sort of feels like you're handcuffed just a little bit, because I can be as passionate as I can be. But I also work 12 hours a day. So I my passion then is going to turn to frustration and then craziness. And you all don't want to see that.
Well, I think you have at least another 9 hours that you could put in something.
Right. It's not a full day yet.
So totally, I think we all empathize with where you are, and I think we've all probably felt it at one time or another going through this. And Corey and I have had a discussion before this meeting, because it's broader than just at your committee level. It was talked about on MBO, I think, and so Corey's going to probably bring this up. So y'all have provided him a great launch pad for later in the meeting, I think. But it's a good discussion, and I think it's discussion we have to continue. And it may be discussion that we need to get, more input from people on these committees to tell us, what are you missing? What could we do differently? What do you, your role is? And if we can define that versus, what we think the role is and what they think the role is, maybe we can find a way to hone in on where we need to be.
Yep, I love that, because Corey and Tony and I have talked about a survey, for this group, but maybe it's more important that we do a survey that's just larger, and also see if people want to switch groups. I mean, I take a shower every day, so if people leave, I know it's not because I stink, but it may be that they're going to find their passions, and there may be somebody on another committee where their passion really is somewhere else, and again, whatever it takes. I'm just all about, how do we find success? How do we become impactful? And how do we change the community that we live or work in?
Ray, do you want to tell about your data that you've seen, what happened since we've gone virtual?
Well, I was mentioning to Dean just before this meeting that we've missed quorum more than we ever have since July 1st, which is baffling, because July 1 is when we had all of our committees go exclusively virtual, which part of that was to ensure that we would have quorum, because we're no longer we're asking people to show up in person. And it's, for whatever reason, had the opposite effect. So I don't know if that's just a really weird coincidence or what, but
I don't feel like it is.
Isn't that also when you turned over leadership in several committees as well, though? So you have new leadership. So there's other change that could be a factor in why you've got some disengagement there.
Well, and with the PY committee, and Colleen, you don't know this because you weren't involved in it, but it's possible we burnt them out. We spent a solid year doing the fine detailed work of the RFP, which was neither fun or, exciting.
I told her to get off this committee before it came due again.
Yeah. Be that the PY committee is just burned out. You know,
Yeah, and if that, again, I am not here to judge any person as to what their motivations are. But if that's the case, I hate to say it, but sometimes you got to politely say, if you're burned out, that's fine. We understand. But it
Well-
may be time to step aside for someone who's not burned out so that we can keep the light moving and we can move forward. And I know those are tough conversations, but if we stand still, we lose momentum. And I don't know that that's the goal of the WIB either.
So, Colleen, I didn't report this when I was giving the MBO report, but we did spend some time talking yesterday at the MBO committee meeting about, we looked closely at our attendance records for all of our board members. And we're reaching out to a handful of board members that we have a few that have not attended any meetings for the last, this whole fiscal year, since
Wow.
July. So, it's not to be, heavy-handed, of course. Like Gina said, we're volunteers here. We're not gonna dock your pay if you can't.
Right.
Good job, okay? It
But
wouldn't cost us anything.
we do need to better understand, like you were saying, their motivation, and if they really have the ability to make a full commitment to this. And if not, that's okay, But that does feed into an agenda item that's later on. It's one of the reasons that I wanted to bring up the idea of, let's evaluate our calendar year 24 meetings to see what, think back over the past years, talk about what's worked, what's not working, what could use improvement. And some of that is to ultimately get more board member engagement. So. But I think that this is certainly worthy of an offline conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'll make myself available, however you all feel appropriate. I mean, obviously, I just want to make sure that this committee remains true to its mission and impactful in the community at whatever that looks like, and if it's time to pivot, let's figure out what that pivot looks like. If we stay the course, let's stay the course, but I just want to make sure that I'm doing exactly what is needed and also what can be supportive through the funds and everything else.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. I'm skipping the board chair update because I've talked way too much. And I have a lot to say. But I didn't think I did until I started talking. Liberty,
Okay.
you want to go ahead and take us through finance?
And you all who are online, Colleen, Katrina, the finance report is in the email packet that I emailed out. I'm not going to be sharing that on the screen right now.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Okay, the report that we're looking at is as of October 31st. And I'm happy to report that we do have our actual carryover and our actual allocations. We did receive our October allocations. So
They didn't give them to us in December?
well, it was the end of November. But
Okay.
yeah.
Close enough.
Yeah.
They meet
Okay.
expectations.
Right.
That
yeah.
was still early.
I thought so. I was happy. So this is our actual allocation for the year. So I'm happy about that. We did receive a statewide reserve grant for GROW, which Corey may or may not talk about later, but he will at some
That's the
point.
256.
160.
164
I see it.
34. Mhm.
Okay. I was
Yeah.
looking at the wrong.
And that's all I would like to point out. On the bottom right is our expenditures. It looks like we're under expended, but we're really not. It's just the timing of when we're getting things paid and getting them into the accounting report. So this will get caught up hopefully November or December's report. We'll see, in particular with the direct service, direct services for Brighton Center. We're getting those invoices processed and into the accounting system. So that will be on there the next time. Did anyone have any questions?
Okay. Melinda,
Okay. The KPI is for July through the end of October, so July 1 to October 31st. So we'll take a look at the WIOA enrollments side first for the programming. Total number of clients at this point in the year through the end of October is 73. Some of those are carryover clients from last year that may have been enrolled with us prior to July 1. So keep that in mind when you're looking at that number. 21 of them are dislocated workers, 43 adult, and then 9 of those were youth enrollments. The new enrollments for the fiscal year so far at this point is 30. When you kind of look at that compared to last year, the entire year they enrolled 55. So we're already at 30 at this point, which is really good. 8 being dislocated worker, 21 WIOA adults, and then 1 WIOA youth enrollment. The total active enrollment, this is a snapshot of who is active on the caseloads right now for WIOA. 33 folks are in individual career services. 5 folks are in work experiences, and 9 in educational training. You'll notice the difference between the 73 and the total active snapshot, and that's because folks have exited the program, so they're not included in that active snapshot. The county of residence, race, age, and gender is reflective of the 73 total folks. So 22 reported their residents at the time of enrollment in Boone County, 9 were Campbell, Carroll had 5, 3 in Grant, 25 in Kenton, 2 in Owen, 2 in Pendleton, and 5 were non-NKWIB counties. The race breakdown of the enrollments is listed there at percentages. At the last WIB meeting, John Baines gave some suggestions on how we could make this more readable. So I've changed that. Instead of like individual numbers, they're percentages, but I do have the individual numbers too if anybody needs that information. So at the time when folks were enrolled, they filled this information out on the registration, and that's how it's captured. So Black or African American is 22% of the caseload. 7% is not disclosed, 1% multiracial, and then 70% white. The age breakdown, sorry, I have to clear my throat every time I turn around. The age breakdown, 33% is ages 35 to 44, 22% 45 to 54, 14% 55 to 64, 2% is 65 or older, 15% 18 to 24, and then 14% was 25 to 34. 41% female and 59% male. I'm gonna enlarge my screen because this is terrible that my eyes are this bad, but it's just a reality. Trying to look at it on my screen. Okay, so the benchmark section, we also took a look at that and how it could be more clearly a snapshot in time for where we are with the benchmarks. Since we have an end of the year goal for some of these, we wanted to break it down by quarter. So the quarterly benchmark that you see right there is from July 1 to the end of September. So we have not incorporated anything from October yet. We will include that in the second quarter benchmark reflection. So total new enrollments, the goal for the end of the year is 90 or more. And so we were in the green at the end of September with 24 enrollments. And those served from a rural county, the goal is to be 25%, just not by the end of the fiscal year, just 25%. So they're at 17, they were at 17.9 at the end of September. Any questions on the front, on the program side?
did you get the 20% goal for rural? Is that basically just a population?
Yeah,
That's the
it's-
percentage in the region that is rural.
Yeah, it's the folks, the 73, if you think of 73 at the top, so anyone who wasn't a resident of Boone, Kent, Campbell, basically.
Okay.
So those other counties are in that 25%.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so we'll take a look at the business side. Job placements is 406 currently. This is information that is pulled from NKWIBs and reported in NKWIBs at this point. We've talked about how we want to have the other partners also reporting job placements if possible in one way, shape, or form to reflect it on this document. So this particular 406, you may remember, maybe you won't remember from the last one, it was 100, we were like just over 100 job placements in September. So the additional information, there was some additional information put into NKWIBs from other partners this time. So that is reflecting 406 through the end of October right now. Customers served on-site and off-site. On-site was 4,276. Those are folks physically coming into our career centers. And then outreach efforts or people served off-site from the career center is 1,352. Customer satisfaction rate is broken down by the career centers. CVG 99.7, Covington 98.9, Florence is 100%, and Carrollton is 100%.
And this is in a 3-month period, July
This is
1st.
July through the end of October, yes. Grant County's not represented there. They haven't had any customers fill out the survey to this point, so that's why you don't see it there. Employer engagement. So we have employers served by location and employers served by sector. So that is reflective of the unique employers information. So 253 employers at this point through the end of October. And you can see the breakdown of the location of the businesses: Boone 103, Campbell 19, 30 in Carroll, 8 in Gallatin, 16 in Grant, 55 in Kenton, 9 in Owen, 5 in Pendleton, and 8 were non-NKWIB counties. Employers served, broken down by sector, and I realized after I looked at this document, and it's been updated since, that some of my words are not clear. So advanced is advanced manufacturing, so our ... 33 in advanced manufacturing, 23 in construction and trades, healthcare, there were 26, IT business and finance 62, transportation logistics 42, and 67 fell under the other. As I said, unique employers is 253, making the market penetration 1.6%. And then labor force participation rate, nothing changed on that from the last time we looked at the document, except national went to 62.7 instead of 62.8. And then we have our quarterly benchmarks for the business side. Total customers served, the goal is 15,000 or more by the end of the fiscal year. At the end of the first quarter, there were 4,108 customers served, which put us into the green. The customers, KCC customer survey, the goal was 10%. We would like to have 10% that are surveyed every month, or if you want to break it down by how many, we look at that, how many people walked in the door and how many were actually surveyed. We want that to be 10%. So we're at 7%. In the yellow, customer satisfaction rate, we always want to be 95% at least. We want 100%, but 95% or more. So 99.4 has us in the green there. And then the unique employers is 900 by the end of the fiscal year. So at this point, in the first quarter, we were in the yellow with 202. Sorry, that was the end of September. So it's not going to be that 253 because it's stopped at the end of September. Any questions on any of that? Okay, so
See. Corey, do you want to go to item 7? Or do we want to do performance update first?
Well,
We can package you.
either way is fine.
Probably since we're kind of following that path. Tony, do you mind going ahead
Sure.
and doing that? And They're
Corey,
kind
can
of
you
in the same
pull up the-
ballpark there.
Okay, so we're gonna pull this up on the screen because hopefully you can see it when we pull it up on the screen. The first one we're gonna look at though is the yearly. We got our PY 22 performance.
Everybody should have it in front.
Yeah, I do.
And so, I mean, it's pretty typical of what it's been the last couple of years. We also, and we'll look at this next, we got a 3-year comparison against the entire state. So,
Heard about
yes.
that.
On the, for the PY 22, we missed 2 performance measures for adults, 3 for dislocated worker. We got them all for youth. We missed medium earnings. That's the one thing that we can't really control. They go out, they get a job, you know. It just depends on what they get paid, how much they've worked, you know, did they work the full 3 months? Did they work a week?
We weren't all that much either.
No. And then we also missed it on dislocated worker, which is a little odd. We usually put that one on the dislocated worker. They tend to be a little more skilled. What you don't see is we also got our first quarter performance for PY 23, which is, and this is not, what I'm talking about now is not up there. It is the first quarter, June, July, and August for this performance year. And, well, PY 23. And we are doing good in some areas. It's about the same. We've missed 7. We've missed 7 performance areas. So not as good, but not a lot different either. Okay, so yeah, this one, well, yeah, you can't see it on the screen.
It's an eye chart.
Yeah.
I can spell it.
Eh,
I don't have long enough arms.
no, me either. I did analyze it though, because this is what I like to
Well,
do.
we're just gonna listen to you.
So,
Well, just, I mean, you can kind of see
yeah,
where
for
the
the
yellow is.
NKWIB.
There, we can see it now.
Yeah.
That works.
Wow. Yeah, this is on like a delay.
yeah, if you just want to blow up NKY, and I'll talk about the rest. Okay, so for PY 20, which is the first one listed, you can see here that we missed 2 areas. We're not looking at this. This is Wagner Pizer. These top 3 are, I'm not sure what order they're in. Likely adult dislocated worker and youth. Okay, so you see we've missed 2 there. Here we've missed 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 again. So we're looking at, you know, pretty much the same, and then we're hitting 7 over here. For PY 20, we ranked somewhere between 3 and 5 because in the rest of the state, we had 2 other areas that missed 2 performance measures. Okay, so again, not that bad. You though are looking at someone who we had years of never missing performance. So for me, this is, you know, we're kind of middle of the road. I don't love it. I really like being the best. And in the past, it was just unheard of if anyone but possibly Western Kentucky beat us. So this is hard for me. In PY 21, we actually ranked 6th in the state, and then in PY 22, we ranked between 3 and 7 because 5 of us across the state missed 5. And so, you know, like I said, average, middle of the road, that's where we're doing. And then, you know, with the 7 that we've missed on the first quarter, we look to be at about the same place. I will say that the median earnings for dislocated worker went up significantly this first quarter of the new performance year, 13,000. So that's a great. For some reason, youth went way down. Well, part of it is we've had two, that's in the performance and, you know, they may not have, you sometimes don't make huge wages, especially when they start out. So any questions?
What do you think is different now in terms of the actual service, like in practical application of these numbers? What do you think is different today versus 2020? In terms of, is it a service issue, or
Well,
are staff less
20
trained, or is the workforce different? Like, what are the things you attribute it to?
2020 was, if you're talking performance, that was actually pre-COVID. It was actually the very beginning of COVID. So we were dealing with our normal flow, so to speak. So by 2020, we were measuring, you know, what had happened before.
2020 started in July of 2019.
20, yes,
Through June of
okay.
20.
Yeah.
Oh, was it?
First
Yeah,
of
we
all,
have to
you
have
have to forget everything you've known about a calendar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we have to think it through.
Yeah,
No, I mean,
yeah.
you know, there's factors
Took
that
me 4
are
years
that
of
are
this board to be able to
influencing
answer that one question.
performance, clearly. Like, there's factors that are influencing performance. Are the
Yes.
metrics off, for example, now
Mhm.
just based on today? Is the workforce different? Is our target audience different? Is our staff different? Like, what's
Yes to
different?
everything.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You know, I mean, really, yes to absolutely everything.
And pretty much across the state, would probably be the same story. right?
Yeah, I would think so. I mean, we all, you know, went through COVID, we dealt with COVID. The workforce is different nowadays.
Mhm.
Most definitely, staff are different. You know, I don't think there's very few staff.
Funding?
Funding's different.
Our funding has been cut
Um,
tremendous.
Yes, it certainly has. Any of the staff that was there prior to COVID, I don't think anybody's left.
So you lost some institutional
Yeah.
knowledge and are managing change.
So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anything else for you can think of?
The state was nice enough to give us all of this knowledge to help us understand how we compare, because what we've typically been seeing is the version that shows us, we're like, you know, are we the best horse at the glue factory, or, you know, are we at parity with this? Is this the new norm? And I think a lot of that's still being worked out.
Yeah.
Is what we're learning.
And are we measuring ourselves based on performance metrics that were based on a different time? On a different, I don't know.
Is
Just
your,
think- to
Well, I
consider.
mean, we look at second and fourth quarter. And that is anyone who's employed after they exit their second quarter, and then are they also employed their fourth quarter? You know, just sustainability. Are they
or is
doing
that
the
forget
job?
everything you ever
Now-
know about a calendar?
Right, right.
Corey tells us that, you know, maybe in the future, we're gonna have to have the same job in the second and fourth quarter in order to achieve that fourth quarter.
That looks
That's
like-
harder.
Yeah.
And a little bit unfair in my opinion, but they don't ask me. Because maybe we help someone get a job and it's a great job, they just got out of school. But maybe they have a better opportunity in the fourth quarter.
And the new workforce is more important.
Oh, my
So
Absolutely.
goodness.
that might have
yes.
been a really good way to measure
That's what
something 10 years ago.
Yeah.
That's what
But
I'm
it is
saying.
not, it is not
Yeah.
where the workforce is today.
Are
But
are
that
the
comes
metrics
from
for
more
success the same as they were when these were?
Oh, yeah,
They don't always,
so that's automatically wrong, but
yeah.
Corey,
Yeah.
does your group with directors, because I know y'all talk to each other and y'all have meetings. You know, what are they feeling when they see themselves and kind of, because they're not sitting two different entrances.
You know,
You know, is there any discussion, y'all look at these together or anything?
we do not. I mean, when we actually meet this Friday, again, we meet once a month. This is touched on when the state joins our meetings for like, you know, 1 hour of every meeting, we have our state partners on, and we touch on this. But honestly, there have been no real substantive conversations among WIB directors regarding these numbers. I honestly feel like generally, the sense is the state, and this may not be a fair way to put it, but the state is accepting of where we're at,
Right.
and there's no real,
There's no pushback, so there's no discussion.
there's no real alarm sounded here. So, again, maybe not a fair assessment, but that seems to be the take.
They do,
Just
I
your
have
metrics
found they
need to be
tend
updated.
to hit the alarm button a little late in the game. But, you know, that you've been around a while, do you think that's a fair assessment?
Yeah,
You know,
when it
so,
becomes a crisis is when you find out.
exactly.
And, you know, I don't think everything has to do with this, but I think some of the yellows have to do with, you know, we always, our job is to serve the hardest to serve individuals. In our current labor market, it is the hardest of the hardest to serve individuals, you know, because those that are still marginalized on the sideline and aren't working in this labor market
Mhm.
Yeah,
have some very real barriers. So
67% labor participation. If I define the labor participation, it's people of work available for work in the market between
16 and up.
16 and 99.
well, and you're not always comparing, correct me if I'm
Today's
wrong,
labor
but you're not
market.
comparing apples to apples, because in certain parts of the state, there is higher unemployment, there are more people to serve, there are more different populations to serve. We happen to be in a very strong economy in northern Kentucky where we are, as
And
you
now for
said,
43 years. or
yes,
something,
and
right?
so, you know, for us to meet some of the levels that other parts of the state are meeting perhaps isn't necessarily an apples to apple comparison here.
I mean, I guess I agree to some extent, but then I look at Melinda's KPI where 4,000 people came into the Career Center, which means 4,000 people said, hey, I need help.
Yes.
I'm coming into the Career Center. So I'm looking at that too.
Yes, sure.
So, yeah,
That's good, that's good.
it's a
Yeah.
metric
Well,
analysis.
we
that
are
needs to
where
be-
we are because we have been doing that for years, you know?
Yeah.
So you're never satisfied with where you are. You want to push forward, and that's a good one.
I always do this. I can't have a mouse in a different device in front of me. I'm gonna go ahead and leave this meeting just to make it simpler for the controlling.
Okay. So we're going to move into all things Greg and Corey.
We're gonna have to fly through this a little bit. This has been great discussion, so I think we.
Well, we're only 1 minute on.
Yeah.
Maybe we're 5 minutes off.
We made up
Yeah,
some-
you're on.
We're 6 minutes off and Brian was 3 minutes late. So we could have
Really?
addressed this.
All right. Well, then we're good. There's still a
You're
lot.
doing a great job. It's Brian's negotiated rate of arrival. It's not hers. But that happened in the fourth quarter of 2027, so we'll catch up.
Right.
Target on your back.
So there's a lot to cram into this last 18 minutes here, but going back to Melinda's report on the KPIs and the number of youth served. We've been talking quite a bit as a team about thinking about our 4 priorities. Youth is one. Youth, helping people who are in addiction recovery get connected to employment. Increasing work-based learning and increasing quality jobs. And that's as simple as I could put it. But youth has been identified as one of our focal points. And I think rightfully so. I think Tony said it before. There's roughly 6,000 youth in our region that aren't in a job and aren't in school. So wouldn't it make sense for us to have a benchmark that is directly connected with the number of youth being identified and served? Why it is that we didn't think of this when we were figuring out the benchmarks to begin with, and we identified the 6 that we did. I can't say, but I wanted to put it before this committee to get your feedback on whether you think it does make sense for us to establish a benchmark of youth served, just as we do with, we currently have a benchmark in place for number of individuals served, right? And I should say registered, right? So if you look back at the benchmarks, our annual goal is to have at least 90 individuals enrolled in services, WIOA registered services throughout the fiscal year. So considering that roughly a third of our funding is devoted to youth, might it make sense for us to have a commensurate benchmark for youth? Expecting that, I'll just throw out a number, 30 youth would be enrolled in a given year. Now, keeping in mind, that is really ambitious considering where we're at today. So just wanted to kind of put that out there for conversation.
So essentially what I'm hearing you say is that in this benchmark about total customers served, you might have a breakdown based on age.
So if you look at the 90, the benchmark where there's 90 on the other page, yeah.
Okay.
Enrolled, WIOA enrolled individuals. So thinking about, well, so we had 30 new this fiscal year so far. And if you look down at the top benchmark, our goal for the year is to have 90 total enrolled individuals. What I'm suggesting is, should we have an additional benchmark that is exclusive to youth, that 16 to 24-year-old group? From the simple standpoint of what gets measured gets done kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And if we shine a light on the number of youth being served, we might stand a chance of more attention being paid to that population.
Yeah, I do think that's a good idea, Corey. Like you said, if it's being monitored, then people definitely will pay more attention to it.
Mm-hmm.
So would the youth numbers still be a part of total new enrollments, or would it be a separate?
It would still be part of it.
I think it's a good idea. I guess my question would be, are we confident on that 6,000 number? I've been to other.
Between 5 and 6.
Okay, so it's within reason.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I kind of remember we had the source of that number, but I can't remember what it was.
It's a stat from.
That's
terrible. I can't remember.
I asked Ellen to get me how that was determined. Because
It came from Ellen.
Yeah.
It's good.
Brighton
It was
Center
a-
came up with, it was Jen Hansard, their data guru came up with that, and she said 5,600. But,
Yeah. Was
Uh,
it Christy Godwin that was saying she thought that number was a bit high?
Yeah.
What's the downside, Corey?
Kind of a
Yeah.
subcategory.
Well,
You know,
I don't know that there's a downside. Well, Dave said we don't need it, and then it then becomes the question of what do we do about it? That would be the downside. If we get
Tom's
to,
dying to say something.
Yep, I'm dying to say something. So I think
His
there's-
body language, he wants to
Oh,
say
the whole
something.
meeting.
He's ready to
guys.
jump
You
out
guys-
of his
if you guys
chair.
could be in my head, think of what to say this whole meeting. Oh, so I think there's some clarification needed though, because it's not just the H marker, it's the actual WIOA program that they'd be enrolled in. So the youth WIOA program, because that's a slightly, well, it is an expanded program over adult WIOA. So an 18-year-old could enroll in adult WIOA and receive adult services. That's a completely different program. So what we're talking here is youth WIOA program enrollments for that age range.
thank you, Todd, that's a really important clarification. But for funding, it's fair to say that roughly 30% of our funds are for the youth
Right.
WIOA program.
And we
So,
I was about to say, I know it's
required
tied
to
to our funding.
spend 20% of youth funds on work experience. That is a law. We must spend it.
And those would still be in that, whatever the
Yes.
benchmark is, they would be counted towards that.
And now have we not over the last couple of years always had unspent dollars in youth?
Yeah, well, we met a requirement for that.
Yeah, we met a requirement, but
Yeah.
we left youth money on the
Yeah,
table.
we tend to, but then Liberty needs money left on the table, otherwise we can't make it to the next funding.
Mhm.
So, I mean, it's just a tricky,
Okay.
The money is being spent, it's just the timing.
yeah, the
Yeah.
timing's odd.
Okay.
In the two last fiscal years, there's been 26 total youth enrolled, new ones coming in. So just to kind of put that out there too.
So you're just trying to get
12,
from 26
One
to
year and
30?
14 to the next year, so.
Well, 13 to 30. I mean, 30 might be too high. I just threw that out there as an even third of a goal, you know, but I think what Melinda said is over the last 2 years.
The last two fiscal
26
years.
youth.
Yeah,
And so,
last fiscal year was 12 and fiscal
Yeah.
22, there was 14 new enrollments for youth.
And I mean, I think we have to remember too, this is an internal document. This is for us.
Mhm.
I mean, so we're kind of measuring this for ourselves. And so it's not like, you know, if we don't make it, that there's gonna be some, you know, the boogeyman's gonna come and, you know, come after us. I mean, we didn't make it, but, you know, I think having a goal, like you said, is smart. If you don't have a goal, then nobody's watching it.
so just to be
Devil's
clear,
advocate.
no. We're actually building a new website, and I hope to report on that in January. Hopefully that's
So
done.
this isn't necessarily material.
This is gonna be on the website.
Okay.
So Colin was pretty clear earlier too, though, that they're struggling with, as a committee, they're struggling with how to tie the work that they do to
Right.
what we're doing, right? And this makes it, I like it, and I think I would almost say, I think we have to do it because youth is too important to us. But we also have to be able to define it in such a way that the board members and especially the committee members understand what it means and what do we do? What are we gonna do with this, right? Or else it's just another number that we're looking and saying, okay, so we're at 11, how do we get to 30? Don't know, they're all in the basements, everybody take a street and find houses with basements, I don't know, you know. But I think that clarity of how we're going to discuss that number and how we expect to impact it might need to be, and that could be discussion in a board meeting. You know, we've talked about taking board meetings and trying to have more discussion. Today, by the way, to me, it's been great because we haven't just gone through a report out and all in favor say aye, right? We've had discussion, we've talked through things and been vulnerable on what's going on. And those are all good things. That's how this group functions at a higher level. And we spread this to the board. So thank you all of you for this today. But I think we kind of have to, I heard your message. It's true. We've got to be able to tie the work how does the board member tie the work that they're doing to the mission and how we move forward? And we all have this group especially has a piece of trying to help us do that and understand clarity of our message. So, but I still think we have to do it because youth is too important.
And this isn't something we have to decide on in the next 8 minutes, but I definitely wanted to put it out there for your consideration and, you know, maybe give this some thought.
Now that you bring it up, it seems odd to me that we haven't had it before.
Yeah,
We haven't had any.
especially, I mean, if the funding, that large of a percentage is
Yeah,
allocated to
Legally
you,
mandated.
yeah,
then it does seem kind of weird that we haven't
Yeah.
measured it before.
yeah,
I mean, we've always measured.
I mean, we've
but we
measured
haven't had benchmarks.
right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah, but
we haven't created the goal.
I think historically, before the pandemic, though, we served a lot more than 30. We serve over 100, 200. So our numbers used to be much higher. So since the pandemic's happened and our numbers dropped off, we're just struggling to get our numbers back up.
Yeah.
Consistently. So
Yeah.
if we had a goal,
Yeah.
that would help strive.
I don't think it's an unusual struggle. I mean, because even for-profit industries are struggling to get their numbers to the pre-pandemic numbers.
Yeah,
I
or
mean-
is the issue that we just really have to find what our new normal is? You know, the pandemic changed for everybody. And so if we're saying that we want to operate in the same way that we did before the pandemic, then we as a board may want to look to see whether or not we've pivoted and adjusted with what the pandemic has done, you know. And so, you know, I think that as we look at these discussions, we know we can't do what we've always done, right? That's not where we are anymore. So how do we look at what we do? How do we restructure, realign, re-emphasize, just think out what it is that we want to be as a board? Because, you know, we may be a couple steps behind and we just haven't recognized that yet. Because we've got so many intelligent people here. I'm impressed every time I listen to any of our conversations, but maybe we just need to go back to the drawing board and say, this was the WIB before, this is the WIB now, and this is how we want to move forward over looking at it, not just this year, but this is what we want to look at for 3 years, and this is what we want to look at 5 years, and really put a strategic plan in place for our board.
If you think about youth specifically, pre-pandemic, a lot of them probably struggled to get beyond $8 to $9 an hour. And now it is pretty easy for them to find $18 to $22 an hour for job rates. That's just the way of the world. Now I'm in a manufacturing sector, so we might be a little bit higher, but I don't think we're off that far anymore.
It's like 15 to 17.
So it changed their needs, right? I know everything went up, you know, all ships rose with the tide, but it changed their needs because they don't have to struggle as much to find higher wages. And, you know, the basement costs the same price as it does now. To post-pandemic. So if I can get a job somewhere slinging packages for $22 an hour, I don't feel as compelled to go out and try to find programs that will help me find a better paying job, because it's still probably going to be more of an entry level.
Yeah.
I'm going to still have to work through some entry level years before I move up.
And statistically too, more youth move back home.
Mhm.
The definition of youth kind of expanded in the world to, you know, 25-year-olds, 30-years-olds moved back home
I'm selling the house.
during the pandemic.
I'm going to get them out.
I mean, it is but it's a different population, and the expectation of youth to be on their own, the age of that change is much later in life than it was before the pandemic. I think the pandemic really changed that perception of when a youth transitions to adulthood
And
being
that may not
independent.
go back. In some European countries,
Yeah.
that's difficult. Good Italy.
But I mean, it's just an example of why an analysis of our metrics and for the workers to not feel like you're not successful, because the environment has changed. These external factors have changed. Anecdotally, you guys know how much you're working.
I think just the overall culture though, with everything going online and remote, I mean, what are we doing to capture that with the services that we're providing, like at the Career Center? You know what I'm saying? Are we doing virtual workshops or virtual TikTok? I don't know how that relates to being professional
I think
world,
you're
but
100% on board. That's a
TikTok,
good path to
everybody's
follow.
on TikTok. Are we on TikTok? I don't know.
But virtual delivery of services is an expectation of our youth now that wasn't an expectation of our youth
Right,
prior to COVID.
Right, because they did all that online learning
Yeah.
mandatory with the school systems, you know,
Right.
so there's, I mean, a lot of them was like, well, do you have a virtual, virtual?
So it's
option?
an upskill opportunity for anyone who does services.
Trash, Jerry.
again, good conversation. I can always count on this group to really, I mean, I really love this group, so. I wish all of our committees worked this way, right?
Amen.
I wish.
So-
wish my- Way.
Yeah, we'll get there. Which is kind of brings me to, like, I know there's not much time. I wanted to just mention just really quickly, so you're aware. What I meant by preschool development grant on your agenda is just that I'm having conversations with the governor's office of early childhood. I had started conversations with them a month and a half ago. Those kind of got disrupted because there was a change of staff person who led that work. So I'm revisiting that next week. In short, the state got a $36 million grant for preschool development. And they're looking to farm that out to the different regions. And based on my conversations with the person who was in that executive director position, we were going to be one of those pilots to do that. And some funds came with that. One of two pilots, actually. So I don't know where that's going to stand now, that there's a new person in that position. But just wanted to let this group know that those conversations are happening. And what I intend to do is sort of fit this under the GROW umbrella a little bit, because we already have plenty of good work that's happening under GROW with Pillar 1. And so I think that actually even increases the likelihood that we'll be able to make this pilot work, because we can already demonstrate a lot of this work's already happening. I don't know how much money we're talking about. I just wanted to let you know.
We'll take
Because
30 and leave 7.
We'll take.
I was thinking 76,
Most
because
of
I didn't want to come out pinkish.
Oh, okay.
it.
I'll be the pig.
Okay.
I mean, our goal continues to be to diversify our revenue and get down from that, depending on WIO so heavily. So that this plays into that. And then the second thing was talking about 2024 calendar WIB meetings. We already kind of talked a lot about like making meetings more meaningful for our board members so that they feel like they're contributing and not just coming to vote yes. But more logistical, practical. I wanted to talk. So for January's meeting, because we're short on time, I wanted to invite Tara to that meeting. In fact, I already invited her. I can uninvite her.
Not easily.
Of course, we had our housing study. It was recently done. We're making our way around the community, mostly Tara is, to talk to the different counties about what's in that housing study.
232 pages of it.
It was monstrous.
It is a lot of
It is, yeah.
information. So I thought it might be good to have her come to the WIB, present it to the WIB. about that.
Good idea.
So I was hoping to have that on the January agenda. And then, okay, so everybody's good with that? You don't want me to uninvite Tara? And you know, more generally speaking,
You can bring donuts.
very well, we're gonna do better with refreshments, and yes, there is gonna be snacks and coffee in the morning for every full with me, I promise. And just more generally, for my first year plus, I haven't really done a very good job of running the full board meeting agenda through this group. I don't know if you would like me to do that more. I understand that probably happened more in the past. But I haven't done that. So I'm happy to engage this committee in the formulation of our full board meeting agenda. Again, just something to consider. We don't really have much time to talk about it now.
We can't talk about it.
Yeah. So, for example, Keith County came to our last board meeting. I didn't run that by, I might have mentioned it to you, Dean, prior to.
Yeah, I think you did.
But I didn't run it by this executive committee. So something to think about is, does this executive committee want to have a hand in forming the agenda for a full board meeting? So that's something we should give some thought to.
So just a quick show of hands. If you want to see Corey engage us more about what's going to be on the agenda visually, just show of hands.
I'm good with giving you ideas,
Yeah.
but I have trust in your leadership.
Yeah.
I would agree.
Yeah.
See, I would have never thought about Keith Coney, and you brought him in, and I thought it was great. And I thought it was something different that the board saw. And I think you have a way of ferreting those things out. So,
Yeah, I support that 100%. I mean, I think that the insight that you have, Corey, is that you're involved in each of the committees, right? So you're hearing what is coming in through the communication lines that others of us are not hearing. So it allows you to take all that information, sort of correlate it and put it together so that when we get to meetings such as this, we're all informed equally. And so I'm very appreciative of how you've handled that.
And, at any time, Corey, also, you have access to all of the subject matter experts that sit around this table to help you formulate ideas and brainstorm on what you might want to do or choose to do. So, I think that's a better use of it. That's my opinion.
you're also in touch with all of the state level and your peers and stuff like that. And you can see emerging things that we can't see.
Well, and I'm afraid too, that if we all start throwing out our ideas of what our priorities are.
Right, we're gonna get scope
we have-
creep.
Yeah, correct. And there's somebody who's saying these are the priorities because you have the full picture. I only
Yeah.
have part of the picture.
So the
I
bad
can't
news
say what
is,
the priority is necessarily. I can give you ideas, and I would gladly give you ideas.
Mhm.
But ultimately, you're up here, and you need to be setting that.
so bad news.
No,
You're on.
Bad or good news, depending on how you feel about it.
And it's not like anybody around this table, including the staff, can't come to you and say, would you consider putting this on the agenda?
Oh,
I
absolutely.
don't remember.
Oh, and we're
Discussion about-
we're
I
not
don't think
short
we've
of
had that much
opinions.
discussion about it before.
Somebody's
I
not
think
gonna
that's
give you
just
some.
Old wives' tales.
Okay. Well, we've got a lot of new executive committee members too.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I have some
So-
ideas about that, but I can offline
Okay.
that.
Well, and that brings, and I know we're a little over, sorry, we're gonna wrap this up in the next 5 minutes. I would like to, as was on the email for this group today, I'd like to, per MBO, by the way, add on the next agenda, carve out some time to get board member feedback about the general structure of our meetings. I wanted to have the conversation here, and that was the plan, actually. But then John Baines, yesterday afternoon at MBO said, well, if quorum is an issue, if engagement's an issue, why don't we put that as a discussion point on a full board meeting? So, yeah, that's certainly fine. So,
We had to do that before, and you saw an uptick.
We did.
Tara had the discussion.
Yeah.
Because when we went in and we started using electronic meetings,
Yeah.
we saw kind of a surge to them, but it was tough to manage it. And so, but we saw a drop off at the same time. So I think we've got to find the happy medium in there. And we're seeing a drop off after we've gone to this. So maybe it's tougher for people to sit at their office, at their desk, and actually break away to be a part of the meeting, so they're not. I don't know.
well, that would be included in the conversation as well as what the content of our meetings, right? So we've done a lot of things the same for quite a while. We may have moved some things around, but, is it working for everybody, basically,
And maybe, one of your powers now, one of your special powers is to take stuff off of the agenda to make time to talk about these
That's the
things.
most difficult thing. What do you take off? Because it's.
You're the czar, you get it.
Mhm.
Yeah, you can take me off.
No,
Well, what are your objectives?
Right.
Yeah.
And then you can decide what to take off based on what do you want to get out of your committee meeting.
Today was a great vision of this group doing that work. You can then take from it and say, this is where we have to put this. And, you know,
Well, I think too, there can be things put into the packet that we as adults can read beforehand so that it doesn't have to be covered at the meeting.
not that much of
100%.
I try, I desire to be there, but. I'm
And
not.
there is a risk in that nobody's reading it and paying attention,
That's why
but
you have a quiz.
Maybe there's enough pages that are marked, you should read this page.
And open.
You know,
Highlight that.
One final thing, thank you for that encouragement and feedback. March's meeting is scheduled for March 12th. I plan to attend a conference on March 12th. And I was wondering if it would be a problem for any of you if we moved that to Thursday, the 14th. The reason I don't want to push it to the following Tuesday is because Eggs and Issues is March 19th. And Brent Cooper was gracious enough to schedule all of 2024 Eggs and Issues not on the Tuesday that we meet, which is great.
Yeah.
So I don't want to,
right.
I don't want
Yeah.
to do that. So
You're right.
I'm proposing that the March meeting be moved to the 14th, which is a Thursday.
I can do that.
That's good.
wherever you tell me.
Okay. I know it's a little bit away, but, okay.
Yeah.
So generally, okay, well, I'll make that change then, if everybody's okay.
Yeah.
All right, awesome. Thank you all for hanging out a
Thank
little
you.
longer.
Thank you for a great meeting and all the input we got from everybody at the table, including Tony, who was like, I got something to say. Thank you all very much.
Thank
very much.
you.
Thank
Thanks.
you so much.
Bye-bye.
Merry Christmas, happy holidays.
Bye. Merry Christmas.
Yeah, happy holidays, everyone.
Happy holidays.
I will